Makita's finger pressed halfway down the shutter button, holding focus on the intersection where glass towers met asphalt, the exact point where corporate Seoul kissed the chaos of rush hour. Through her Fujifilm's viewfinder, she framed the shot. A delivery cyclist weaving between sedans, neon from a convenience store bleeding into rain puddles, the geometric perfection of crosswalk lines against worn pavement. Then the composition broke. A man in a charcoal suit stepped into her frame, tall, angular, moving with the kind of precision that suggested every gesture had been calculated since childhood. 2 security guards trailed 5 paces behind, neither close enough to protect nor far enough to be invisible. A black Genesis GV80 idled at the corner, hazards blinking. Standard chaebol routine. But Makita had spent 4 days hunting details people pretended not to see. And she saw the wrongness immediately. A man in a dark bomber jacket stood at the northwest corner, hands in pockets, wireless earbuds visible. He wasn't waiting to cross. He wasn't looking at his phone. He was watching the suit. Makita's instinct, the same one that had kept her alive shooting street photography in Lagos, Caracas, Detroit, screamed wrong. The suited man reached the center stripe. The man in the bomber jacket lifted his right hand to his ear. 2 fingers extended, deliberate. A signal. 2 seconds later, a silver Hyundai sedan accelerated from the left lane, engine roaring, trajectory locked. From the right, a white delivery truck lurched forward, closing the gap. The timing was surgical, millimetric. The man in the suit stood at the apex of a collapsing triangle of metal and velocity. Makita didn't think. She let the camera slam against her chest, lunged 6 meters across wet pavement, grabbed a fistful of expensive wool coat, and pulled. Her shoulder connected with his ribs. They hit the sidewalk together, bodies tangled, concrete biting through denim into her knee. The sedan's bumper passed 10 centimeters from his Italian leather shoes. Brakes shrieked. A woman screamed. Glass shattered somewhere behind them. For 3 seconds, the city held its breath, then sirens, shouting. The security guards finally closing the distance, one barking into a radio in rapid Korean, the other scanning rooftops like the threat might still be live. The man beneath her breathed in short, controlled bursts, shock suppressed by what looked like decades of practice. He pushed himself upright with terrifying composure, adjusted his suit jacket, straightened his tie. When he looked at Makita, his eyes were dark brown and utterly cold, the kind of cold that came from learning too young that vulnerability was weakness. She stood, wobbling, knee-scraped and bleeding through torn jeans. Her camera swung from its strap, lens intact by some miracle. She met his gaze and said the only thing that mattered, English slurred by adrenaline and the metallic taste of fear. That was no accident. He froze. For exactly 3 seconds, the corporate mask fractured. She saw it, the flash of confirmation, of exhausted recognition, of someone who'd been waiting for death to finally get the timing right. Then he answered in perfect English, accent British boarding school smooth. I know. Behind him, the man in the bomber jacket had vanished into the crowd. If someone tried to kill you in front of 200 witnesses and made it look like bad luck, who do you trust? And if the only person who believes you is a stranger with a camera, what did that camera see? The penthouse suite at the Kyungrae Soh had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lotto World Tower's observation deck and a view that cost more per night than Makita's last 3 months of rent combined. She stood in the marble entryway, backpack slung over one shoulder, mud still on her boots, and stared at the man who'd brought her here. This isn't necessary, she said. Kyungrae Soh. She'd learned his name from the security guard who'd whispered it like a prayer, stood with his back to the window, silhouette sharp against Seoul's LED sprawl. He'd changed suits. This one was navy. Tom Ford, if she had to guess, paired with a black tie that probably cost more than her camera. It's safer than a Goshawan in Hongdae, he replied. His tone suggested the discussion was over. I didn't ask to be safe. I asked to go back to my hostel. Your hostel has no security cameras, a shared entrance code posted on traveler forums, and paper-thin walls. If whoever organized that... He paused, choosing his words with surgical care. That incident believes you saw something. You're a loose end. I did see something. Which is why you're staying here. Makita dropped her backpack and crossed her arms. Let me be clear. I'm not for sale. Whatever gratitude thing this isn't gratitude. Junseo's voice cut like glass. This is risk management. You pulled me out of traffic. Someone wanted me in traffic. Until I know who and why, everyone present at that intersection is a variable I need to control. Control. Protect. Same thing in your world, I'm guessing. His jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he might actually argue. Instead, he pulled a black card from his inner pocket and set it on the entrance console. Corporate account. Meals, transportation, anything you need. Ms. Oh, we'll coordinate your security detail. I don't need a security detail. You do now. Makita laughed, sharp and humorless. You know what I came to Seoul for? To photograph things nobody notices. Street vendors at 3 a.m. Rooftop gardens in Itaewon. The way light hits subway tiles when the train pulls away. I can't do that with bodyguards. Junseo stepped closer. He was taller than she'd realized, and when he looked at her, she saw exhaustion carved into the corners of his eyes. The kind that came from years, not days. Then photograph from the balcony. He said quietly, because if you walk out that door without protection, you might not get another sunrise to shoot. She wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him she'd survived worse than corporate conspiracies in cities more dangerous than Seoul. But the memory of that signal, 2 fingers raised with cold precision, stopped her. How long? She asked. Until I neutralize the threat. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He turned to leave, and she caught sight of something in his inside jacket pocket. A fountain pen, vintage, the cap worn from decades of use. That pen, she said. It looks old. His hand moved to his chest, instinctive protection. It was my mother's. She give it to you? She died 10 years ago. He met her eyes. Car accident, intersection in Gangnam. Witnesses said the timing was strange, too precise. The room went cold. And nobody investigated? Junseo's smile was bitter. The official report said, tragic coincidence. The board called it, an act of God. I was 24 and too devastated to ask better questions. He adjusted his cuffs. I'm not making that mistake twice. He left without another word. The door clicked shut with the kind of finality that sounded like a cell lock. Makita stood alone in a suite worth more than everything she owned, staring at her reflection in the window, Seoul glittering behind her like a beautiful, indifferent galaxy. She pulled out her camera, powered it on, and scrolled through the last shots. Street scenes, motion blurs, and then, frame 847, the moment before impact. The man in the bomber jacket, hand raised, 2 fingers extended. Her thumb hesitated over the delete button. Then she heard Junseo's voice in her memory. My mother died 10 years ago. Witnesses said the timing was strange. She didn't delete it. She copied the photo to her phone, the cloud, and a backup SD card she kept sewn into her jacket lining. Because if history was repeating itself, someone wanted the evidence gone. And Makita Sinclair had never been good at making other people's lives easier. The formal dinner invitation arrived via Ms. O at 9 a.m., hand-delivered on embossed cardstock that probably cost more per square inch than Makita's entire wardrobe. Hansong Group requests the honor of your presence at a private reception, honoring recent corporate partnerships. Attire, formal. RSVP not required. Attendance expected. Ms. Oh Mi-suk stood in the suite's doorway, a woman in her 50s with short silver-streaked hair, reading glasses on a chain, and eyes that missed absolutely nothing. It's a trap, Makita said, still in yesterday's clothes. Yes, Ms. O replied in perfect English. You're supposed to tell me it's fine. I don't lie to people I respect. Ms. O stepped inside, closing the door behind her. The board wants to assess whether you're a threat, a gold digger, or merely stupid. Yoon Hye-rin wants to destroy you publicly, and Sa Jang-nim, Mr. Kang, wants to prove you can handle their world. What do you want? Ms. Oh's expression softened fractionally. I want you to survive the evening, and I want you to show them that not everyone can be bought, bullied, or broken. Makita looked at the invitation again. I don't have formal clothes. I assumed. Ms. Oh produced a garment bag. These will fit. Inside, a beige linen blazer, tailored black trousers, and a cream silk blouse. Elegant, but understated. Expensive, but not trying. Nothing like the designer gowns she'd seen in Seoul's luxury district windows. This is deliberate, Makita said. Very. You're not one of them. Don't pretend to be. The reception was held in a private hall within the Hanseong Group headquarters, a 40-story glass tower in Gangnam's financial heart, where every elevator required a keycard, and every security camera had a security camera watching it. Makita arrived with Ms. Oh, who handed her off to a junior executive with a frozen smile and disappeared into the crowd. The room was all white marble, crystal chandeliers, and people who moved like they'd been choreographing their social interactions since birth. Women in Chanel and Dior. Men in bespoke suits with watches that cost more than cars. Conversations in Korean and English, laughter that sounded rehearsed. And at the center, Kang Jun-seo, surrounded by board members and executives, all of them angled toward him like planets orbiting a sun. Beside him stood Yoon Hye-rin. She was 32 and looked like she'd been designed in a lab to represent perfection. Shoulder-length black hair with a surgical blunt cut, blood-red lipstick, a beige Chanel ensemble with pearls, posture so flawless it looked painful. When she saw Makita, her smile sharpened. You must be our hero, Hye-rin said in English, voice bright and venomous. She crossed the room with the confidence of someone who'd never been denied anything. Jun-seo told me about your brave intervention. I did what anyone would do. Did you? Hye-rin's gaze traveled from Makita's blazer to her boots, practical, scuffed, chosen for comfort over status. How fortunate that you were there, with a camera, at precisely the right moment. The implication landed like a slap. Are you suggesting I staged it? Makita's voice stayed level. I'm suggesting coincidences are rare in our world. Hye-rin glanced at Jun-seo, who was watching from across the room with unreadable eyes. Especially coincidences involving foreigners and very wealthy men. Your world sounds exhausting. Our world. Hye-rin stepped closer, voice dropping to a whisper only Makita could hear. You're in it now, whether you like it or not. And everyone here is wondering the same thing. How much did Mr. Kang offer you to stay quiet? Makita felt the room's attention shift. Subtle, predatory. Conversations paused, eyes turned. This was the test. She looked at Hye-rin, then at the watching crowd, then directly at Jun-seo. His expression was stone, but his hand had moved to his chest, to the pocket where he kept his mother's pen. Makita spoke loud enough for the room to hear. Nothing, because I'm not for sale. Silence crashed like a wave. Hye-rin's smile froze. Everyone has a price, Ms. Sinclair. Maybe in your world, not in mine. Somewhere in the back of the room, a camera shutter clicked. Makita realized with cold certainty that the entire exchange had been orchestrated. The question, the public setting, the photographer hidden among the guests. By tomorrow morning, her face would be on every tabloid site in Seoul, framed as either a saint or a scammer. And she'd just bet everything on which version the world would believe. The dinner that followed was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Makita was seated between a vice chairman who spoke no English and a director of international relations who asked pointed questions about her visa status, travel history, and future intentions regarding Seoul. Across the table, Hye-rin watched like a hawk evaluating prey. Jun-seo sat at the head, silent, eating with mechanical precision. He hadn't looked at Makita since her public declaration. The vice chairman, Mr. Choi Dae-jung, according to his place card, leaned toward Junseo and spoke in Korean, voice low but audible. Makeda didn't understand the words, but she understood tone, concern, caution, thinly veiled warning. Junseo replied in English, cutting and deliberate. Mr. Choi worries that my gratitude may be misinterpreted. He suggests it would be cleaner if Miss Sinclair returned home sooner rather than later. Cleaner, Makeda repeated, for the company's reputation. Choi's English was heavily accented but precise. He adjusted his thick-framed glasses and smiled without warmth. You understand, yes? A foreign woman, a dramatic rescue, rumors beginning already. These things become complicated. Complicated for who? For everyone. Choi's gaze was steady. You seem like a smart woman, Ms. Sinclair. Smart women know when to accept generosity and move on. Makeda set down her fork. Is that what this dinner is? A buyout meeting? It's an opportunity for clarity. Then let me be clear. I'm not leaving Seoul until I understand what happened at that intersection. And if you're all this desperate to get rid of me, it means I saw something you don't want seen. The table went silent. Hyerin laughed, a bright false sound. She's bold, Junseo. I'll give her that. Junseo's eyes stayed on Makeda. For the first time all evening, she saw something crack in his expression. Not anger, but something closer to respect, or maybe exhaustion. Mrs. Sinclair is my guest, he said quietly. She leaves when she chooses, not before. Choi's jaw tightened. Sajang-nim, with respect, the discussion is over. The weight of his title, Sajang, president and CEO, landed like a gavel. Choi fell silent, but his expression promised consequences. The rest of the dinner passed in strained politeness. When dessert finally arrived, some architectural confection of yuzu and white chocolate, Makeda excused herself to find the restroom. She was washing her hands when Hyerin entered. That was a mistake, Hyerin said, checking her lipstick in the mirror. Which part? All of it. Refusing money, challenging the board, making Junseo choose you over them in public. She turned, leaning against the marble counter. You think he's protecting you? He's managing you. You're a variable, a problem. And once you stop being useful, you'll stop being protected. You sound scared. Hyerin's smile was razor sharp. I'm not the one who should be scared, Mrs. Sinclair. I've been by his side for 6 years. I understand how this world works. You? You're a tourist playing detective, and tourists go home. Or they stay and learn the language. Hyerin's expression hardened. Then learn this. Junseo doesn't love easily. He calculates. And right now, you're useful because you're the witness. But the moment you become a liability, the moment the board decides you're more trouble than you're worth, he'll let them bury you. She left in a cloud of Chanel No. 5. Makeda stared at her own reflection. Tired eyes, scraped knuckles. A woman who'd saved a stranger's life and somehow ended up in a war she didn't understand. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ms. Oh. Security footage from the intersection was deleted. All cameras within a 2-block radius. Professionally done. Someone planned this carefully. Makeda's hands went cold. Because if they could erase evidence that fast, they could erase her just as easily. Makeda spent the next 3 days as a ghost in a gilded cage. The suite was luxurious and suffocating. Security rotated shifts outside her door. Ms. Oh checked in twice daily with updates that revealed nothing. And Junseo vanished entirely, back to running an empire she assumed, or hiding from whatever came next. She used the time to dig. Seoul's digital archives were surprisingly accessible for a city built on hierarchies. She searched, Kang Junseo Mother Accident 2015 Gangnam. Results flooded in, news articles, obituaries, corporate statements. The story was consistent. Tragic accident, no foul play suspected, grieving family requests privacy. But buried in an English-language expat forum, she found a thread from 2015. Anyone else think the Kang accident was weird? I was there. Delivery truck ran a red, sedan came from nowhere. Timing was insane. Cops shut down questions fast. Family paid off? Replies. Chaebol don't get investigated. Different rules. Heard a witness tried to testify. Disappeared before the hearing. You're all conspiracy theorists. The thread ended abruptly. No follow-ups. No resolution. Makita screenshot everything. Then she searched. Hansung Group Aurora Foundation, 2015 wand. Only 2 results. A press release announcing the foundation's creation, focused on inclusive tourism and economic empowerment, and a retraction 6 months later citing strategic realignment. No explanation, no financials, no names beyond the board of directors. Her phone rang. Ms. O. Come to the CEO's office, now. Jun Seo's office occupied the top floor. Minimalist design, dark wood, floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking Seoul's nightscape. He stood at the window, hands in pockets, still wearing his suit from what must have been a 16-hour day. Ms. O was there too, holding a tablet with the care of someone carrying a bomb. Show her, Jun Seo said without turning. Ms. O handed Makita the tablet. On screen, a financial document, dated 2015, labeled Aurora Foundation, budget allocation. Approved funding, W50 billion. Actual disbursement, W12 billion. The remaining W38 billion had been reallocated to operational reserves. Makita scrolled down. The reallocation signature, Choi Dae-jung, vice chairman. He stole it, she said. Embezzled, Ms. O corrected. Systematically, over 6 months. By the time my predecessor noticed, the foundation was gutted, and Jun Seo's mother was dead. And nobody investigated? The board called it financial restructuring, approved unanimously. Ms. O's voice was steady, but her hands trembled. I've kept these files for 10 years, waiting for the right moment. Why now? Makita looked at Jun Seo's back. Because history is repeating, he said quietly. The attempt on my life, the timing, the precision. Someone thinks I'm too close to reviving Aurora, and they're willing to kill to stop it. He finally turned. His face was exhausted, haunted. My mother died trying to create something good. I was too young and too broken to see the pattern. But you saw it, Makita. You saw the signal. And that means someone made a mistake. They underestimated a tourist with a camera. What do you need me to do? Testify. When I expose the board, I'll need a witness who can't be bought or intimidated. Someone with proof. He gestured at her camera. You have frame 847. I have these financials. Together we can bury them. And if they bury us first? His smile was grim. Then at least we'll have tried. Ms. O cleared her throat. There's one more thing. She pulled up a second document, a dismissal notice, dated 6 months ago. Employee, Kim Jae-ho. Position, security team lead. Termination signed by Kang Min-jae, Director of International Expansion. Makita's blood went cold. Your brother fired the man who gave the signal? Or activated him? Jun Seo's voice was hollow. Min-jae has always resented being the illegitimate son. My father had an affair. Min-jae was the result. Raised separately, brought into the company at 25, always one step behind me in succession. You think he orchestrated the attack? I think someone close to me wants me dead. And the list of people with motive, means, and access is very, very short. And his own brother's name sat at the top. They worked through the night. Makita, Jun Seo, and Ms. O, building a case that felt like constructing a bomb. Bank transfers, board meeting minutes, Kim Jae-ho's employment records, security footage gaps. And frame 847, the photo that started everything. At 3 a.m., Jun Seo finally stopped pacing. He sank into his desk chair, loosened his tie, and stared at his mother's pen lying on the desk. She used to tell me that power without purpose was just cruelty and expensive clothes, he said quietly. I didn't understand then. I was 17, angry, embarrassed that my mother cared more about social projects than profit margins. Makita looked up from her laptop. You were a kid. I was old enough to pay attention, old enough to ask why the foundation collapsed so fast. But I was too devastated to think past my own grief. He picked up the pen, turning it slowly. She died on a Tuesday. Intersection near the office. Truck ran a light. Sedan cut her off. By the time I arrived, she was gone, and the board was already drafting the statement. Tragic accident, no foul play. And you believed them. I wanted to believe them. Because the alternative, that someone I trusted killed her, was unbearable. He met her eyes. Do you know what it's like to suspect everyone? To look at your mentor, your board, your own brother, and wonder, which one of you did this? No. But I know what it's like to be alone. Something shifted in his expression. You saved my life, Makita. And I don't even know why you're still here. You could have taken the money, the first-class ticket, vanished back to your life. Why stay? Because nobody should get away with murder twice. He laughed, short, bitter. You sound like her. Your mother? She used to say, if you witness injustice and do nothing, you become the injustice. He set the pen down. I've spent 10 years doing nothing, building profits, making shareholders happy, wearing the mask they expect. And for what? So the people who killed her can sleep soundly in their mansions? Then stop doing nothing. And if I'm wrong, if it's not Minjae, if I destroy my brother for a crime he didn't commit, then you follow the evidence and find out who did. Junseo stood, walked to the window. Seoul glittered below. 24 million people, most of them asleep, unaware that in this tower, 2 people were preparing to detonate a decade of lies. If we do this, he said, there's no going back. The board will retaliate. Hyerin will weaponize the media. Minjae will either be vindicated or destroyed. And you... He turned. You'll be targeted, publicly, viciously. They'll dig into your past, your finances, your family. They'll paint you as a liar, a gold digger, a conspiracist. Are you ready for that? Makita thought of frame 847, of the signal, of a woman she'd never met who'd died trying to build something good. I've been called worse. Junseo's laugh was real this time, tired but genuine. You're either the bravest person I've met or the most reckless. Can it be both, Ms.? Oh, cleared her throat from her desk. It's 4 a.m. You both need rest. The gala is in 3 days. The gala? Makita looked between them. Hansong Group's annual charity event, Junseo explained. 2,000 guests, live broadcast, every major media outlet in Seoul. Minjae is giving the keynote on integrity and corporate leadership. His smile was cold. It's the perfect stage. For what? For exposing everything. Live. In front of everyone who matters. Makita's heart kicked. That's insane. That's the only way to ensure they can't bury it. Public exposure, irrefutable evidence, no backroom deals. He looked at her. But I can't do it alone. I need you to stand with me, testify, show the photo, be the witness my mother never had. And if they come after me, they will. But I'll be standing next to you. And this time, I won't look away. Because sometimes justice required witnesses. And sometimes witnesses required someone willing to burn their empire to protect them. The next morning, Makita woke to chaos. Her phone, 47 missed calls, 200+ messages, notifications flooding every social media app. She opened Twitter, the top trending hashtag in Seoul, Danong Gold Digger Gate. The photo was everywhere, her and Junseo at the formal dinner, the moment he defended her in front of the board. But the headlines weren't about heroism. Foreign tourist seduces CEO after staged rescue. King Junseo's mystery woman. Opportunist or true love? Hansong Insider. She refused W500M payout, demanded more. Every article quoted anonymous sources. Every photo was captioned with speculation. And at the center, Yoon Hye-rin, giving an interview to a tabloid, face perfectly composed, voice dripping sympathy. "I feel terrible for Jun Seo," Hye-rin said on camera, dabbing at dry eyes. "He's so kind, so generous. And there are people who see that kindness as weakness, who would exploit a traumatic event for personal gain. I hope he realizes the truth before it's too late." Makita watched the video 3 times, nausea rising. A knock. Ms. O entered, face grim. "Don't read the comments. Too late. She's escalating. The gala is in 2 days. She knows we're planning something and she's trying to destroy your credibility first." "Is it working?" Ms. O hesitated. "Public opinion is divided. But the board is unified. They want you gone." "And Jun Seo?" "In emergency meetings all morning, Choi is demanding he issue a statement distancing himself from you. Hye-rin is threatening to call off the engagement if he doesn't." Makita stood, legs shaky. "He's going to cave." "I don't know." "I would. If I were him, I'd throw me under the bus to save the company." Ms. O's expression softened. "You don't know him like I do. He's been preparing for this moment his entire life. He just didn't know it until you showed him the courage to act. Courage or stupidity. In this world, same thing." That afternoon, Makita received a visitor she didn't expect. Kang Min-jae. He arrived without security, without pretense. Just a man in a navy suit and gold-rimmed glasses, carrying 2 cups of coffee from a chain she recognized from her hostel days. He sat across from her in the suite's living room, smile warm and utterly empty. "Ms. Sinclair, I wanted to meet the woman who saved my brother's life." His English was flawless, accent American educated. "Thank you. Truly. You're welcome. You must think we're all monsters." He laughed, self-deprecating. "The board, Hye-rin, even Jun Seo. It's a lot of theater, I know. But that's the chaebol world. Performance and paranoia. Is that what you came to tell me?" "I came to make you an offer." He set an envelope on the table. "W1 billion. Clean transfer, no strings. You go home, live your life, forget this ever happened." Makita stared at the envelope. 1 billion won, roughly $750,000 USD. Life-changing money. Never work again money. "And if I say no?" Min-jae's smile tightened. "Then you stay caught in a war you don't understand, fighting for a man who's using you as a shield. You think Jun Seo loves you? He loves control. You're a project, Ms. Sinclair, a problem to solve, and once you stop being useful, you'll stop being protected." The words echoed Hye-rin's from the restroom, almost verbatim. "Did you two coordinate this script?" Makita asked. Min-jae's expression flickered, surprise, then calculation. "Hye-rin and I want the same thing, stability. Jun Seo is brilliant, but he's obsessed with ghosts. Our mother's death, the Aurora Foundation, conspiracy theories that distract from actual business. She was your mother too." "She was, and I mourned her. But I didn't let grief turn into paranoia." He leaned forward. "Take the money, walk away. Let us handle family business." Makita picked up the envelope, felt its weight. Then she tore it in half. "I'm not leaving until the truth comes out. All of it." Min-jae's mask finally cracked. His smile vanished, eyes going cold. "Then you're a fool, and fools don't survive in this world." He stood, adjusted his glasses, and walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned back. "Frame 847. The photo on your camera. I know you have it. And I know you think it proves something." He smiled again. "Sharp. Dangerous. But evidence is only evidence if you live long enough to present it." The door closed, and Makita realized Min-jae had just confessed to knowing about the photo, which meant he knew about the signal. Which meant... She grabbed her phone, hands shaking, and texted Miss O. "It's him, Min-jae. He just threatened me. He knows about frame 847. The reply came instantly. "Meet me at the office. Now." Don't tell anyone where you're going. But Makita never made it to Ms. Oh's office. In the lobby, security stopped her. Not her usual detail, but new faces, stone-hard expressions, badges that looked legitimate but felt wrong. They escorted her not to a car, but to a black van with tinted windows. Ms. Oh's orders, one said in accented English. Makita's instincts screamed. But what choice did she have? The van drove for 20 minutes, winding through Gangnam's glass canyons, finally stopping at an empty cafe in a neighborhood she didn't recognize. The security guards opened her door, gestured for her to enter. Inside, Min Jae, sitting at a corner table, 2 cups of untouched coffee in front of him. I lied about Ms. Oh, he said calmly. Sit. We need to talk without interruption. Makita stayed standing. This is kidnapping. This is a conversation. One you'll want to hear. I'm leaving. Security is outside. They're mine, not Jun Seo's. You can try to run, but we both know how that ends. Makita's blood turned to ice. She sat, slowly, keeping her phone in her lap under the table. She opened the voice recorder app, hit record. What do you want? Min Jae slid a tablet across the table. On screen, bank statements, wire transfers, emails, all with her name attached. Payments from offshore accounts labeled Hansung Holdings to an account she'd never seen before. What is this? Your payment history. $500 million over the past 2 weeks, transferred in increments to avoid detection, all traceable back to you. His smile was surgical. You're being paid to stay close to Jun Seo, gather information, and report back to competitors. That's fabricated. Doesn't matter, it looks real. And in 12 hours, every major news outlet in Seoul will receive these files. Tourist who saved CEO revealed as corporate spy. Makita's hand shook. Why? Because you're forcing my hand. I offered you money. You refused. I warned you. You ignored me. Now you leave me no choice. He leaned back. Walk away, Makita. Delete frame 847. Disappear. Or I release this, and you become the villain in a story you can't control. Jun Seo will never believe this. Won't he? Min Jae tilted his head. He's spent his entire life surrounded by people who want something from him. Money, power, access. You show up, refuse payment, play the hero. Doesn't that seem convenient? Doesn't that seem designed? He trusts me. He doesn't trust anyone. Not fully, not anymore. I'll make sure these files reach him first. And when he sees evidence that you've been lying from the start, he'll do what he always does, calculate the risk and cut his losses. Makita felt tears sting her eyes. Rage, helplessness, the crushing weight of being trapped in a game where every move led to checkmate. You killed your own mother, she whispered. Min Jae's expression went flat. I did what was necessary. She was going to destroy this company with her social projects and inclusive reforms. The board agreed. Choi agreed. Even Hye-rin's parents agreed. We protected the empire. And now you're doing the same to Jun Seo. I'm doing what he's too weak to do, ensuring Hansung survives another generation, with or without him. He stood, straightened his suit. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, the world learns the truth. My version or yours. Choose wisely. He left her sitting in an empty cafe, holding a phone with a recording she'd never be able to use if her credibility was destroyed first. By sunrise, Makita was headline news across 3 continents. Tourist hero, exposed, paid corporate spy infiltrated Hansung Group. King Jun Seo's savior was part of elaborate scam, sources say. Black American woman accused of targeting Korean CEO for financial gain. The fabricated bank statements were everywhere, leaked simultaneously to a dozen outlets, all citing anonymous whistleblowers within Hansung Group's security division. Photos of Makita at the formal dinner, at the cafe with Min Jae, taken from a hidden angle to look incriminating, entering the Signiel Seoul suite. comment sections flooded with rage. She planned this from the beginning. Disgusting. Poor Kyungrae Soh. Used his kindness against him. Foreigners always trying to scam our chaebols. And then the edited video surfaced. Security footage from the cafe, showing Min-jae sliding the envelope across the table, except the audio was replaced with fabricated dialogue. Fake Makita. How much for the CEO's schedule? Fake Min-jae. $500 million. As agreed. The video went viral in minutes. Hanseon scandal trended globally. International media picked up the story. American tourists' elaborate con targets, Korean billionaire. Makita sat in the suite, phone blowing up, watching her life implode in real time. A knock. Ms. Oh entered, face-stricken. He's seen it. Kyungrae Soh? The board convened an emergency meeting at 6 a.m. Choi presented the evidence. They're demanding he cut ties immediately and issue a public statement condemning you. And? He hasn't responded. He's been in his office for 3 hours. Won't see anyone. Won't answer calls. Makita's chest tightened. He believes it. I don't know what he believes. But the gala is in 6 hours. If he doesn't stand by you, we have no case. Min-jae wins, Choi wins, and everything we've built collapses. Maybe it should. Maybe I should just leave. Ms. Oh grabbed her shoulders, voice fierce. You didn't come this far to quit now. Kyungrae Soh's mother didn't die for nothing. You didn't save his life for nothing. We expose them tonight, or we let them win. Choose. Makita looked at the woman who'd risked a 20-year career to hand over evidence. Who'd protected secrets for a decade, waiting for someone brave enough to act. Teach me how to survive the next 6 hours. Ms. Oh's smile was grim. First lesson, in this world, reputation is currency, and we just became bankrupt, so we have nothing left to lose. Which means we can finally fight dirty. Ms. Oh's plan was surgical, desperate, and utterly insane. We can't win in the court of public opinion, she said, pacing the suite. They control the media, the narrative, the platforms. But we can win where it matters most, live television. The gala. Exactly. 2,000 guests. Live broadcast on 3 networks. Every major shareholder, board member, and media executive in Seoul. If we present evidence there, irrefutable, undeniable evidence, they can't bury it. Min-jae is giving the keynote. He'll never let me on that stage. He won't have a choice. You're going as my +1. Secretaries are invisible in this world. We blend into the background, hold tablets, take notes. No one questions us. Makita looked at the woman who'd spent decades being underestimated. You've been planning this. For 10 years. I just needed the right moment. Ms. Oh pulled out a flash drive. This contains everything. Aurora Foundation financials, Choi's embezzlement, Kim Jae-ho's termination records signed by Min-jae, and Frame 847. And the fake bank statements? Fabrications, easily disproven with forensic analysis. But we don't have time for that. We need a confession. Min-jae won't confess. Ms. Oh's smile was cold. He will if he thinks he's already won. The gala took place at the Lotte Hotel World Tower, a ballroom of white marble, crystal, and old money dripping from every chandelier. Makita arrived in a server's uniform borrowed from Ms. Oh's contacts, hair tied back, face bare, camera hidden in a service bag. No one looked at her. Servers were ghosts in a world that worshipped power. The ballroom filled, executives in tuxedos, socialites in couture, board members clustered near the stage. Hyerin held court in a red gown, smiling for cameras. Choi stood with other vice-chairmen, expression smug. And at the head table, Kyungrae Soh, alone, face carved from stone. He hadn't looked at Makita once. Hadn't acknowledged her existence. For 3 hours she'd wondered if he believed the lies. Now, watching him across the ballroom, she realized he was performing. The mask was back, perfect and impenetrable, because that's what survival required. But his hand kept moving to his chest, to the pocket where he kept his mother's pen. Min-jae took the stage at 8 p.m., smile broad, confidence unshakable. "Thank you all for joining us tonight," he began, voice smooth as oil. Hansung Group has always been built on 3 principles: integrity, innovation, and family. Tonight, I want to talk about the first: integrity in leadership, especially in times of crisis. The irony was suffocating. Makita moved through the crowd, service tray in hand, invisible. She reached the tech booth at the back, where Ms. O was already waiting, fingers flying over a laptop. "He's connected to the venue's AV system," Ms. O whispered. "I can override his presentation. But we only get one shot. The moment we take control, security will shut us down. Then we make it count." On stage, Min Jae continued. "Recent events have tested our resolve. Scandals, accusations, individuals who sought to exploit our goodwill. But we've remained strong because we know the truth always prevails." Makita pulled out her phone, opened the recording from the cafe. The real conversation. Min Jae's confession. Ms. O nodded. "Do it." Makita hit upload. The ballroom's massive screens flickered. Min Jae's presentation vanished, replaced by audio. Clear, undeniable, devastating. Min Jae's voice. "You're forcing my hand. I offered you money. You refused." Makita's voice. "You killed your own mother." Min Jae's voice. "I did what was necessary. She was going to destroy this company." The board agreed. Choi agreed. We protected the empire. The ballroom exploded into chaos. Guests shouting, cameras flashing. Min Jae frozen on stage, face draining of color. Hee-rin standing abruptly, glass shattering at her feet. And then Kyungrae Soh rose from his seat, crossed the ballroom with terrifying calm, and climbed onto the stage. He took the microphone from his brother's lifeless hands. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the truth." Jun Seo's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "My name is Kyungrae Soh. I am the president and CEO of Hansung Group. And I am resigning. Effective, immediately." The ballroom fell silent. 10 years ago, my mother was murdered. It was framed as a traffic accident. Convenient timing, precision execution, witnesses who disappeared before they could testify. I was 24 and too devastated to ask the right questions. The board called it tragedy. I called it grief. But it was murder. He turned to face Min Jae, who stood frozen, face pale, hands trembling. "My brother, my own blood, orchestrated her death because she dared to believe this company could be more than profit margins and shareholder returns. The Aurora Foundation was her legacy. Inclusive tourism, economic empowerment, opportunities for people this industry ignores. And the board, led by Mr. Choi Dae-jung, embezzled $38 billion, gutted the project, and eliminated the woman who stood in their way." Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Security moved toward the stage, but Jun Seo raised a hand, and something in his expression stopped them. 2 weeks ago, they tried again. A traffic accident in Gangnam, timed with the same precision, executed by a former employee my brother personally activated. They would have succeeded, except for one variable they didn't account for. He looked directly at Makita, standing at the back of the ballroom in a server's uniform, tears streaming down her face. A tourist, a photographer, a woman who saw a signal no one else noticed and chose to act. Makita Sinclair saved my life that day. And in return, this organization, this empire I've spent a decade building, tried to destroy her. Hye-rin moved toward the exit, but security blocked her path. Ms. Yoon knew about the attempt on my life before it happened. She didn't plan it, but she didn't stop it because a dead fiancé was worth more than a living one. Insurance, inheritance, control. Hye-rin's face twisted with rage. "You have no proof." "I have emails, timestamps, messages between you and Min Jae discussing contingencies if the accident succeeded." Jun Seo's voice was ice. "You're not a partner. You're a conspirator." He turned back to the crowd, to the cameras broadcasting live across Seoul, across South Korea, across the world. I resign because I will not lead a company built on blood. I resign because integrity matters more than empire. And I resign because the only way to dismantle corruption is to step aside and let the truth burn everything down. He pulled his mother's pen from his pocket, held it up for everyone to see. This pen belonged to Kang Mi-sun, a woman who believed business could be a force for good. She died for that belief. I've spent 10 years honoring her memory by betraying everything she stood for. No more. He set the pen on the podium, stepped back, and looked at Min-jae one last time. Security will escort you to the authorities, Mr. Choi as well. The evidence has been delivered to prosecutors, journalists, and shareholder coalitions. There's nowhere left to hide. Min-jae's face crumpled. Rage, grief, the terrible realization that he'd lost everything. Security moved in, and he didn't resist. Just stared at his brother with empty eyes. I did it for us, Min-jae whispered. For the family. So you could lead without her idealism holding you back. Then you never understood me at all. They led him away. Choi followed, silent, defeated. Hye-rin screamed threats about lawsuits and reputation, but her voice faded into the noise of a ballroom erupting into frenzy. Jun-seo stepped off the stage, walked through the crowd, executives parting like a sea, and stopped in front of Makita. I'm sorry, he said quietly, loud enough only for her to hear. I let them hurt you. I should have stood by you from the beginning. Makita's voice broke. You just destroyed your life for me. No. He reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand. I destroyed a lie, and I'm finally free. Behind them, cameras captured everything. And for once, the story Seoul would tell was the truth. The aftermath moved with the speed of scandals in the digital age. By midnight, Min-jae and Choi were in custody, charged with conspiracy to commit murder, embezzlement, and corporate fraud. Kim Jae-ho, the security guard who'd given the signal, was arrested at Incheon Airport, attempting to flee to the Philippines. Hye-rin's legal team issued statements denying involvement, but leaked messages between her and Min-jae, recovered from company servers, painted a damning picture of complicity. Hansung Group's stock plummeted 23% in overnight trading. Emergency board meetings convened. Shareholders demanded answers. International media descended on Seoul, framing the story as a Shakespearean tragedy of power, family, and betrayal. And in the center of it all, Makita Sinclair, the tourist who'd accidentally become a whistleblower. She sat in Ms. Oh's office, a space that suddenly felt less like corporate territory and more like a war room, watching news coverage on mute. American photographer exposes Chaebol murder plot. Kang Jun-seo's dramatic resignation, integrity or destruction. Inside the conspiracy that killed a Korean matriarch. Ms. Oh set down a cup of tea. You're a hero now. That must feel strange. I'm not a hero. I just had a camera. Heroes rarely recognize themselves. Ms. Oh smiled, tired but genuine. My predecessor kept those files for 7 years before passing them to me. She made me promise. Wait for someone brave enough to act. I waited 10 years. And then you showed up, a stranger who owed us nothing and risked everything. Is it worth it? All this destruction? Destruction implies something valuable was lost. This company was built on a woman's grave. Tearing it down isn't destruction. It's excavation. We're finally uncovering what was buried. A knock. Jun-seo entered, still wearing his tuxedo from the gala, tie undone, looking more human than Makita had ever seen him. The prosecutors want your testimony, he said. Formal deposition, frame 847, the cafe recording, everything. When? Tomorrow, but you can refuse. You've given enough. Makita stood. I'll testify. Your mother deserves that. You deserve that. Jun-seo's expression cracked. Grief, relief, something dangerously close to hope. I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Okay. Why did you stay? After the threats, the headlines, the fabricated evidence, You could have disappeared, gone home, saved yourself. Why stay? Makita thought about frame 847, about a signal in a viewfinder, about a woman she'd never met who died trying to build something good. Because I've spent my life photographing things people pretend not to see. Poverty, injustice, the details everyone ignores because acknowledging them requires action. And I was tired of just documenting. I wanted to do something. Even if it cost you everything? I didn't have much to lose, but you did, and you chose truth anyway. Kyungrae Soh stepped closer. I need to rebuild, not the company. That's gone, or it will be once the audits finish. But the foundation, Aurora, the project my mother died for, and I can't do it alone. What are you asking? Stay. Not as a witness, not as protection, as a partner, co-director. Help me build something that actually matters. Makita's heart kicked. I'm not qualified. You're the most qualified person I know. You see what others miss. You act when others freeze. And you're not afraid to call me out when I'm wrong. He smiled. Small. Real. I need that. The foundation needs that. And what do you need? The question hung between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Kyungrae Soh reached out, fingers brushing her hand. I need to stop building empires and start building a life. And I'd like you in it, if you'll have me. Makita looked at the man who'd lost everything to stand by her side, and realized she'd found exactly what she'd been photographing her entire life. Something real in a world of carefully constructed lies. The fallout continued for weeks. Min Jae's trial became a national spectacle. Testimony from Ms. Oh, forensic analysis of the embezzlement, Kim Jae-ho's confession in exchange for a reduced sentence. The prosecution presented frame 847 as Exhibit A, the signal that proved premeditation. Min Jae's defense crumbled in 4 days. Verdict: guilty on all counts. Sentence: 18 years. Choi Dae-jung received 12 years for embezzlement and obstruction of justice. Hyrin avoided criminal charges but faced civil suits from shareholders. Her family's reputation, built over 3 generations, imploded overnight. She left Seoul for London, engagement ring pawn to pay legal fees. Hanseong Group dissolved in controlled bankruptcy, assets liquidated, subsidiaries sold to competitors. The business empire that had defined a family for 50 years ceased to exist in under 6 months. But from the ashes, something new emerged. The Aurora Foundation launched on a spring morning, exactly 10 years and 2 months after Kang Mi-sun's death. The office wasn't a glass tower in Gangnam, but a renovated hanok in Bukchon. Traditional Korean architecture with modern accessibility, walls covered in photographs from communities the foundation served. Makita stood in the main gallery, adjusting a print. A street vendor in Dongdaemun, hands wrinkled with age, smile brilliant despite everything. Her camera hung around her neck, familiar weight. But now it served a different purpose. Documenting impact, not just observing it. That one's my favorite, Kyungrae Soh said, appearing beside her with 2 cups of coffee, cheap convenience store blend, not the executive espresso of his former life. Mine too. She told me she'd been selling tteokbokki in that spot for 30 years, never had a permit because she couldn't afford the fees. Aurora helped her get licensed. Now she's training 2 apprentices. That's what my mother wanted, not charity, infrastructure, systems that empower instead of pity. Makita smiled. You sound like her. I'm trying. He looked around the gallery, walls filled with faces, stories, proof that business could build instead of extract. Some days I still wake up expecting the office, the suits, the board meetings, and then I remember I'm free. Any regrets? 1. He turned to face her fully. I regret not thanking you properly, for saving my life, for staying, for showing me that power isn't about control, it's about choice. You've thanked me approximately 47 times. Then I'll make it 48. Kyungrae Soh reached into his pocket, not for his mother's pen, which now sat in a museum dedicated to her legacy, but for something smaller. A box. Simple, wooden, handmade. Makita's breath caught. "This isn't what you think," he said quickly. "Or maybe it is. I don't know. I've never done this before. Junseo, let me finish before I lose my nerve." He opened the box. Inside, not a diamond ring, but a small silver band engraved with coordinates. 37.5665 degree N, 126.9780 DE. The intersection where you saved my life. The exact spot where everything changed. Tears blurred Makita's vision. "I'm not asking you to marry me," Junseo continued, voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. "Not yet. I'm asking you to stay, to keep building this with me, to choose this, us, not because you're trapped or protected, but because you want to. And if I say yes, then we keep going. One day, one project, one photograph at a time. No empires, no masks, just two people trying to honor a legacy by living honestly." Makita took the ring, felt its weight. So much lighter than the corporate cards, the 5-star suites, the golden cages of his former world. She slipped it on her finger. "I'm staying. Not because you asked, because I found something here I've been searching for my whole life. Which is somewhere I can stop running. Someone who sees me. And work that actually matters." Junseo smiled, the real smile, the one that erased a decade of corporate masks, and pulled her close. Outside, Seoul hummed with its endless energy. But in this renovated hanok, surrounded by photographs of lives changed and a legacy finally honored, two people stood together. Not because fate demanded it, but because they'd chosen each other when the world gave them every reason not to. 6 months later, Aurora Foundation had expanded to 12 cities across South Korea, partnering with marginalized communities to create sustainable tourism infrastructure. Makita led the visual storytelling division, training local photographers, documenting impact, ensuring the people they served were authors of their own narratives, not subjects. She still traveled light, still hunted details people missed. But now her camera was a bridge instead of a window. Junseo managed operations with the precision of his CEO days, but none of the cruelty. He met with community leaders in jeans and sweaters, sat on floors in traditional homes, listened more than he spoke. The man who'd once commanded boardrooms now built consensus in neighborhood meetings. Ms. Oh served as chief operating officer, finally stepping out of the shadows and into leadership. She hired former Hanseong employees who'd been laid off during the bankruptcy, the ones who'd been loyal to the work, not the corruption. Her office had a window now, and a thriving, succulent plant. On a cool October evening, Makeda and Junseo stood at the intersection where it all began. 37.5565 degrees N, 126.9780 degrees E. Traffic flowed normally. Pedestrians crossed without drama. The city had moved on, indifferent to the violence that had nearly happened here. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't been standing here that day?" Junseo asked. "Every day, but not with regret, with gratitude. For saving me? For being in the right place, for having a camera, for being the kind of person who runs toward danger instead of away from it." She looked at him. "That's who I am. I'm still figuring out if I like that about myself. I like it, even when it terrifies me. Good, because I'm not changing." Junseo laughed. Easy, genuine. "I wouldn't want you to." They walked through Gangnam, past glass towers where his former life still existed in memory, past cafes where deals worth billions were negotiated over Americanos. But they weren't part of that world anymore. They'd chosen something smaller, harder, infinitely more meaningful. At a Pojangmacha, a street tent restaurant serving soju and fried snacks, they sat on plastic stools, sharing food like millions of Koreans did every night. No security, no performance, just two people eating cheap, delicious food and talking about tomorrow's community meeting in Busan. "My mother would have liked you," Junseo said suddenly. "Yeah?" She had a rule. Never trust anyone who's comfortable with too much power. She'd see you, someone who walks away from luxury, who challenges me when I'm wrong. And she'd approve. I wish I could have met her. In a way, you did. Everything we're building, it's her. The foundation, the mission, the belief that business should serve people, not profit. Makita raised her soju glass. To Kang Mi-sun, for dreaming bigger than the world allowed. Junseo clinked his glass against hers. And to Makita Sinclair, for being stubborn enough to make impossible dreams real. They drank. Around them, Seoul glittered, indifferent, eternal, beautiful in its chaos. And two people who'd survived assassination attempts, media trials, and the collapse of empires sat together on plastic stools, building something that would outlast them both. A year after the gala, Makita stood in front of a journalism class at Yonsei University, invited to speak about photojournalism and ethical storytelling. 50 students watched her with the intensity of people who'd followed the Hanseong scandal in real time. She was no longer a tourist, but a case study, a cautionary tale, a strange kind of hero. I didn't come to Seoul to save anyone, she began, projecting frame 847 on the screen behind her. The signal, the moment before impact, the detail that changed everything. I came to photograph a city I didn't understand. And I learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is pay attention to what everyone else ignores. A student raised her hand. Do you regret getting involved? You lost your anonymity, your safety. Was it worth it? Makita considered the question. Regret is complicated. I didn't choose to be a witness. I just happened to have a camera at the right moment. But I chose to stay. I chose to fight. And yes, it cost me. But silence would have cost more. What would you tell someone who sees injustice but feels powerless to act? That power isn't about status or money. It's about showing up, documenting, refusing to look away. She clicked to the next slide. Photographs from Aurora Foundation projects, faces of people building businesses, reclaiming space, telling their own stories. These people have more power than any CEO I've met, because they're creating change from the ground up, and that's the only kind of change that lasts. After the lecture, students crowded around with questions, business cards, requests for portfolio reviews. Makita answered patiently, remembering when she'd been the one asking, the one desperate to prove herself. Outside, Junseo waited on a bench, reading a proposal for a new Aurora initiative in Jeju. He'd started wearing glasses, fine wire frames that made him look less like a CEO and more like a professor. She liked it. How'd it go? He asked. Good. Exhausting. They asked about you. What did you tell them? That you're the rare person who had everything and chose to give it up for something real. That makes me sound noble. I just didn't want to become my brother. That's what makes it noble. They walked through campus, autumn leaves brilliant against gray stone buildings. Students rushed between classes, oblivious to the man who'd once commanded a billion-dollar empire. Do you miss it? Makita asked. The power, the influence, the certainty of who you were? Junseo thought for a long moment. I miss the simplicity. Every decision had a metric. Profit, growth, shareholder value. Now every decision is complicated. We're building systems for humans, not spreadsheets. It's messier, slower, harder to measure. But I sleep through the night. I look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. And I'm with someone who actually knows me. Not the title, not the performance, just me. He stopped walking, turned to face her. So no, I don't miss it. Not even a little. Makita kissed him, soft and brief, in the middle of a university courtyard where no one cared who they were. Good answer. That night, they returned to the intersection one last time. It had become a ritual. Once a month, they stood at 375665 Degren, 1269780 degree E, and remembered the signal. The split-second choice. the cascade of consequences that followed. Ms. O told me something today, Kyungrae Soh said, hands in his pockets against the October chill. She's been tracking Min-jae's case. He's up for parole review in 8 years. How do you feel about that? Honestly? I don't know. He's my brother. He killed our mother. Both things are true. And I don't know how to hold them at the same time. You don't have to know. You just have to keep moving forward. Is that what you do when the past is complicated? Every day, my family, my choices, the places I've run from, it's all complicated. But I'm learning that you don't heal by running. You heal by standing still long enough to feel it. Kyungrae Soh pulled her close, and they stood together at the intersection where a tourist had saved a CEO, where a conspiracy had been exposed, where 2 lives had collided and fundamentally changed each other. Thank you, he said quietly, for that day, for every day after, for choosing to stay when you had every reason to leave. Thank you for being worth staying for. Above them, Seoul's lights blazed against the night sky. 24 million stories, most of them untold, all of them mattering. And in the middle of it all, 2 people stood exactly where they were always meant to be. Not because fate demanded it, but because when the signal came, when the moment arrived, they'd both chosen to run toward danger instead of away from it. And that choice had saved more than just one life. It had saved the possibility of living honestly in a world built on beautiful lies. Epilogue, the photograph. 2 years after the intersection, Aurora Foundation celebrated its 100th community partnership with an exhibition in Seoul's National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art. The walls displayed photographs from foundation projects, street vendors in Dongdaemun, fishing communities in Busan, textile workers in Daegu, farmers in Jeolla, faces and stories of people building futures on their own terms. But the centerpiece was different. Frame 847, printed large, hung in the center gallery. The man in the bomber jacket, hand raised, 2 fingers extended, the signal that proved a conspiracy. Beside it, a timeline, the rescue, the investigation, the trial, the foundation's launch. Makita stood in front of it, camera around her neck, watching visitors read the placards. Still the most important photo I've ever taken, she said when Kyungrae Soh joined her. Because it exposed the truth? Because it reminded me why I carry a camera, not to observe from a distance, but to witness, to document, to act. A journalist approached, recorder in hand. Ms. Sinclair, can I ask? Do you consider yourself a hero? No. I consider myself a person who happened to be paying attention. And now? The foundation, the partnerships, the impact. Was it worth the cost? Makita looked at Kyungrae Soh, at the photographs surrounding them, at the visitors reading stories of people reclaiming power, one small business, one community garden, one tourism initiative at a time. Every single day, she said. Later, after the exhibition closed, Makeda and Kyungrae Soh walked through Bukchon's narrow streets to the foundation office. It was late, the city quiet in that rare hour between night and dawn. I have something for you, Kyungrae Soh said, pulling a small wrapped package from his bag. Inside, a vintage Leica camera, refurbished, perfect. Your Fujifilm has been through a war, he said. I thought you might want a backup, or a retirement gift for the camera that started everything. Makita turned the Leica over in her hands, felt its weight. This is too much. It's not enough, but it's what I can give. Tools to keep telling stories. Because that's what you do. You show people what they're too afraid or too busy to see. And the world needs that. I need that. She looked up at him. This man who'd lost everything to stand by her side, who'd chosen truth over empire, who'd learned to lead by serving instead of commanding. I love you, she said simply. The first time she'd said it out loud. Kyungrae Soh smiled. The real smile, the one that erased years of corporate masks. I love you too, even when you're reckless, stubborn, and charging into danger with nothing but a camera and bad ideas. Especially then. Especially then. They stood in a quiet street in Bukchon, two people who'd saved each other in different ways, holding cameras and hope, and the absolute certainty that they were exactly where they belonged. Seoul stretched around them, ancient and modern, brutal and beautiful, a city that demanded everything and gave nothing except the chance to become whoever you were brave enough to be. And Makita Sinclair, the tourist who'd saved a CEO and stayed to build a dream, raised her new camera and took one final photograph. Jun Seo, smiling, the foundation office behind him, dawn breaking over the hanok roofs, light touching everything with gold. Not a document of tragedy, not evidence of conspiracy, just proof that sometimes, when you pay attention to the signals everyone else ignores, you don't just save a life. You change the entire story. If you made it this far, leave a comment below. Would you have stayed and fought like Makita, or would you have taken the money and disappeared? Your answer might reveal more about you than you expect. And if this story moved you, if you felt the pull of justice, love, and the courage to act when silence is easier, subscribe to support more stories like this. Because the world needs witnesses. And sometimes, witnesses need to know they're not alone.